The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
Welcome to the O Show. I'm Laura Babcock, joined as always with Loren Lieberman. We'll say hi to Loren in just a second, but here's what's coming up on the program. We've got some new information that may affect how you feel about a downtown casino. We'll share that with you. Also, we're going to talk about the economy locally. It's been a number of stories in the last few days, reports that have come out, impressions made by our politicians, and some new ideas they're floating. All of it makes for a really interesting but complicated discussion about what's happening here in Hamilton. So we're going to break it down for you over 3 topics coming up on the show. Plus, we'll have all our way to goes. Let's say hi to Loren Lieberman.
How are you?
I'm good.
I happen to know it was a rather important weekend, but why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me why?
Yeah, it's my 40th birthday.
Come on, the hell you say? 40?
40. I know. I know.
Wow.
You were thinking 27, but I'm telling you, dude, I'm 40.
Oh.
I'm trying to catch up with you.
What?
And so I did a 4-day extravaganza, of course. And one of my favorite parts of the whole weekend, which was awesome, was that I got my kids' names tattooed on my arm. There you go, see? I did that yesterday at 4 o'clock on my 40th birthday. So Darrow on one arm, Matisse on the other, because I wanted to see them every day, everywhere that I went. I know I'm a little bit of a suck, but I love my kids. How was your weekend?
Well, I didn't get a tattoo or two.
You've got enough of them already.
Oh, of course not. That would be filthy. I had a lovely weekend, in spite of the fact of being trapped. I'm supposed to not be in this country, but
yeah, you're supposed to. Can I say what you're supposed to be doing? Okay,
but I'm supposed to be in a faraway land, and I will get there.
But it's exotic,
yeah,
and
very much
exciting,
so.
And you're a lucky man. But we'll hear about it maybe afterwards.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
We'll keep people guessing. Speaking of keeping people guessing, there's some things that are going on in town we're going to get to in just a minute. Some new information about the casino that we could have heard about a few days ago, I suppose, but we've got it here for you tonight on the O Show. But first, a bit of an update on the SOS, you know, that whole situation going on with Linwood Charlton at the OMB. Well, there were 2 national articles on it this past week. One was done by the Huffington Post, which, as you know, is a huge online newspaper affiliated with the HuffPost in the U.S., of course, and it was very supportive of the position of Linwood Charlton in this whole discussion, and about promoting the human rights of people who suffer with mental illness, and also of the SOS campaign, the T-shirt campaign. That's still, of course, going strong, and that was mentioned in the Huffington Post piece. So I sent that to Council so they were aware of the national coverage on it, and Councillor Marula showed me some national coverage that I hadn't seen, which was the National Post suggesting that the Ontario Human Rights has actually overstepped in terms of getting involved at the OMB on this issue, not just for Hamilton, but in other municipalities, and quoted Sam Marula. So I posted both articles in the SOS Facebook group page to keep the dialogue going and to keep people informed on this situation. But I guess the important update here, Loren, is that this local situation has now gained national attention, and the national media so far seems about as split on it as Hamilton does.
National Post and Huffington Post couldn't be any further apart.
That's absolutely, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
One, of course, very conservative-leaning National Post, and Huffington Post, one would think of as being more on the progressive side of the spectrum. So it's really fascinating, and we'll keep everybody apprised of that. And of course, you can still get those shirts if you are on that side of the issue. They're available at Upper Gauge Garage and Picks and Sticks. I always say that wrong, on Locke Street, and some other places. Okay, so that's what we heard about that. Now, another big issue, of course, in town is the casino. And I had an interesting visit from Hamilton citizen journalist Joey Coleman today. He popped by the lair where I was producing the O Show. There you can see him paying me a visit. And we got talking about tonight's program and the casino. And he told me something that's really interesting, Loren. So if you want to just share only the facts on this, and I think Joey's readers are going to hear about this now as well. It adds to the debate.
Sure, only the facts. Casino crime. Deputy Police Chief to appear at Thursday's subcommittee to discuss crime impact of a downtown casino. Joey Coleman says Councillor Ferguson has told committee police think it will be harder to track potential for organized crime at downtown location. Public inputs, next steps, casino location, options for consideration also on the agenda. Public input so far. Has the city virtually split on the idea?
So as you know, there's been a lot of polling. No, come on, there's been a lot of polling done, and you know, it's kind of coming 50-50. The Spec did a poll, a little bit more than 50% were opposed, but there's been lots of different polls going on. But at the last committee meeting, and I guess Joey Coleman, citizen journalist, was the only media in attendance, he told me today, Councillor Ferguson said that he believed the police chief, or the deputy chief in this case, is going to come to the committee this Thursday and verify and expand on the fact that they have concerns that if there's a downtown casino, it'll be more difficult for the police to, you know, prevent, for instance, organized crime because of the coming and goings of a downtown location versus Flamborough that they're better able to monitor. So this is what Councillor Ferguson brought up at committee. There's no record of the committee meetings. This is coming from our citizen journalist, Joey Coleman. But that might be what we're going to hear on Thursday. Does that change anything, Loren?
Well, I know that organized crime and OLG casinos is virtually unlinked entirely. What I do know is that Hamilton Wentworth Regional Police like to increase their budgets. So you can probably put two and two together here.
So you're saying this is a cynical comment from the police service?
Lunacy. And to suggest that organized crime can be controlled at a Flamborough location, but might not be able to, is nonsense. What? We need to change the conversation on casino to this. This is a summary of the PFK report that has come out with financial analysis based on a casino in Flamborough and what it does for the community, from tax to employment to the rest of it, to another location or a downtown location.
So what's the bottom line in the report? Don't just wave it at us. What does it say? Only the facts on it.
Only the facts is that anyone who is not in support, and I mean from council, anyone who does not support a casino, make sure that your ward does not receive any of the financial windfall in this community. There is tremendous potential for our tax base through a casino, through job creation, through on and on and on. And we need to start talking. There was a Spectator article that actually said we need to start delving into some facts. We don't have time to review this paper. Hopefully it will become live.
Okay, so let me use one of your favorite expressions, which is that's total nonsense. The suggestion that any councillor who doesn't support a casino thereby cannot receive any money should a casino come forward. That's not how it works, and you know it.
Of course.
That being, that's just not how it works. They're allowed to weigh in and reflect their constituents' opinions, and if there is money generated, as there has been from Flamborough, then that money would be separated and spread out through the city. But I think what you've just brought up is the fundamental here. You and I both stated our opinions on the casino. I don't mind the Flamborough location. My concern is the downtown location poses more harm potentially than good. And the police may be on Thursday adding to that argument. Now, on your side, you're saying that this report is coming out saying that there is real money to be had. So both of these pieces of fact only reinforce our positions on this argument, which continues to make it an extremely difficult case for council.
There are two kinds of casinos that do best. One is a destination casino, like Foxwood in the northeast of the States, where you've got absolutely everything and hundreds of thousands of people will go to it. The other way of doing things is to put the casino where the people are.
Which is why on the mountain might make sense. There's more population up there and they seem more in favor of the casino based on recent polling. Okay, let's move to the next one. What did you think
let's see
about...
what the police say about that
Yeah, let's see what they say on Thursday. Let's see what they have to say. And I think that, you know, you're being very... I know you want a casino, Loren. We all know that. But for you to suggest that anything the police will say will just be because they want to increase their budget is, I think, beyond cynical. I think it's unfair.
There's a policing issue at
We'll find
Flamborough.
out, but that's what Councillor Ferguson alluded to at the last meeting, and we're reporting that here on the O Show, and people can watch for that, and we'll see what happens. I think it adds to the argument. Okay, let's go to our next topic, which is there was a big announcement, of course, about building permits, and we'll get only the facts on this, and I want to know what you think of how the mayor's positioned this story.
Only the facts. Spectacular economy. Hamilton has beaten last year's record of $1 billion in building permits with 3 months left to go. Mayor Bertina calls Hamilton's economy, quote, spectacular because every measurable is positive and exceeds expectations. Food Bank reports says usage is up by 10%. Experts cite crisis in homelessness.
So these are all things coming out at the same time.
Tale of two, one city.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? That there's the building permits, which of course is a great thing to see, but for the on the other side, there is a crisis with homelessness, which we're hearing more and more about. We will continue to. And there was a report that just came out that said year over year, the use of food banks gone up 10%. So the question is, if in fact there is a tale of two cities within one, Loren, as you've said and others have in the past, why would our mayor label our economy as spectacular? Certainly this news on building permits is pretty impressive, but is our entire economy spectacular, or is that a misrepresentation?
You know what, the mayor is commenting on the state of the economy as it relates to those stats, and those stats are spectacular when you consider where we were at with building permits a few years ago. What I take issue is the point that you can't jump up and down simultaneously on our poverty issue while also having in your other hand the banner of what a success and how the lower city and especially downtown is so much improved.
I think you can. I think you can say
they're counterintuitive messages.
But I think you can say, well, and so let's put a little bit of context that I also heard today around the building permit statistics. Somebody mentioned, well, this is also the year of the downtown, the new health center getting its building permit. This is also the year of some other major projects that the city of Hamilton and taxpayers are part owners of that are happening in town. So does that skew things? The stadium, for instance, does that skew things? Is this report, in fact, skewed by our own tax dollars?
Yeah, but development's development.
But here's my point, though. I thought it was a good context to put on this record banner year, because you didn't really get that screaming through the article that there may be some of these one-time big government taxpayer projects, right? So what's the impact of that? So I think that a mayor can stand up and say, these are excellent results. It shows there's momentum in Hamilton's favor. These building permit numbers, this is a trend now, as McCabe said this morning on the radio. However, Hamilton continues to have a large infrastructure deficit, as we heard from the city manager last week. We continue to have a crisis in terms of homelessness and affordable housing in our community. So while this is terrific news, there's more work to be done. I think that's how you, as you said, can champion the one piece of news without negating the reality of others. Because when you see your mayor say that it's amazing times in Hamilton and we have a spectacular economy, it makes you wonder if he's speaking for the so many people who don't experience that.
Well, okay, so Hamilton is going through a wonderful renaissance as long as you avoid the code red areas and situations.
But how can you? That's part of our city, is the
point.
Well,
I think most Hamiltonians don't live and don't have any impact on the code red existence in their day-to-day anyways. I think we do just bypass all that, whether you choose to read about it in the spec or go to the various neighborhoods to see it.
But we shouldn't. We should, right? It's part of the same tale of the same city. And as long as we have this inequity, I know that whole expression of, a rising tide lifts all ships. This is an example of rising tide, but let's be aware that there are some ships there that, need to be patched before they can even be lifted with the tide. Okay, any other thoughts on this before we move on? Because we've got three parts on the, economic stuff.
Let me summarize it this way on those two issues. Waterfalls replaced smokestacks of the steel companies. It wasn't steel companies and waterfalls.
Right.
It works better as an instead of than an in addition to.
I know. I don't quite know what you're saying, but we'll pretend I do for the sake of the show. Okay, moving on to our next topic, and this is going along with all of this news. Okay, so we get this big news that there's all this money coming in from building permits, and at the same time, we're hearing that council needs to really look at. I'm not going to use the word austerity because I don't think we're at that stage, but we need to look at efficiencies, and so let's get the facts on what council's done about this and what maybe they're going to do with the report that came from it.
Only the facts on a flood of cuts. City spent $350,000 on cost-saving services review and will decide which recommendations merit study on November 15th. Some recommendations: increased rec fees, limiting cost for protective plumbing programs, and increased parking rates.
Now, a couple of things on this, of course. $350,000 for a study, and that's what it costs to look at a $4 billion budget and try to find. That's what our city budget is about, as I understand it. So it's going to cost some money to get this done. What concerns me is this, Loren. Before council has even had a chance for the ink to dry on this document and really vet the document, they're already coming out saying that some of these recommendations are non-starters, like the protective plumbing program, which is essentially helping out people who have experienced flooding and sewer backups, right? So it's great that the city is helping people who are getting hit by these floods, but the point of doing a review like this is to say, let's get an external, non-biased, parochial force, somebody who doesn't know anybody or doesn't want to get reelected, to come and look at the entire situation and see if there are efficiencies. And their concern with that program was that it's already double budget, council's going to put more towards it, and KPMG is saying, let's have a closer look at that. Also looking at the fire budget, also looking at raising city recreation fees. So if you're going to spend our taxpayer money to find out what external professionals think of how we're spending our money, at least look at it and consider it before you decide that there are sacred cows. What's the point?
I think this isn't the first time, and certainly it's becoming a little bit habitual that we bring in KPMG specifically. A couple of other instances come to mind, and other outside consultants.
Sure.
It's a good thing that they don't take their work too seriously, that they're in there just for the paycheck, because at the end of the day, it doesn't. You're not really a consultant. It's like, make us a piece of paper. And we'll pay you a whack of money for it. We're not really going to take what you have to say.
Well, I think that KPMG probably takes their work seriously.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you be insulted if you were...
If
you were KPMG, time after time, your recommendations were completely ignored, why do you continue to do them?
Well, if you've asked me personally, I've had the city say to me, we've put contracts out that my firm, Power Group, would be good for, and I've said I don't want to work for the city as a consultant because I don't think they'll do it.
Right.
And as a consultant, life is short. You'd like people to take your recommendations. But we paid $350,000 for this. This is not something they do for free and we're able to ignore. So before... Literally the same day that we're hearing about the report in the newspaper, in the Spectator, we have councillors saying that certain things are non-starters.
Well, of course.
But it's beyond ridiculous. It's a waste of our money and our time just to throw these things out there and then, immediately say that you're not going to be open to the information.
There's some things that are standard. We should raise parking meter rates. Well, except in my ward in the BIA, and then not in his ward in the BIA, and we can do the same dance.
So we share the frustration on this.
Sure.
And I'm hoping before council gets to that meeting where they study this, that they take into consideration that there are some of us out there that think that this exercise, if it's just a PR exercise, then it's not helping how we feel about them.
In the
and
chain
it's
of command, elected official, hired consultant. Okay, so that's that. But they know better.
In the chain of command, elected official, us, the taxpayer, who are their bosses. Stop wasting our money. Okay, on to the next topic.
That's hopeful.
Well, it's true. I've said that to a few councillors over the time on Twitter. Okay, let's get to our quick little thank you here, and then we'll get to our final topic. I want to thank did you get your hair done by Reno this week?
No, not this week.
You need to, really. It makes a big difference.
I'm sorry.
Of course, I want to thank Pennington's Plus for the wardrobe and jewelry, and also to our friends at Madison Avenue who do such a fantastic job for us. Well, for me, and occasionally Loren.
Sometimes,
makes a big difference. Yes, get back there. Okay. Now let's talk about some solutions to this. So Councillor Marula has come up with an idea. He came up with it 10 years ago, but he didn't get very far, so he's coming back with it about selling some pieces of the city to make some money to help with all of this that we've been discussing. Let's have only the facts, Lauren.
Sure. The name game. Councillor Marula wants any city-owned property, unless named to honor someone, to be available for naming rights. The city of Hamilton makes $866,000 a year now from selling advertising space.
Okay, so Marula brought this up before, and they are making now, $866,000 a year. That's from things like if you go to an arena and you see it on the boards and things like that. But what we're talking about here is a much bigger deal. Like the city of Mississauga, which Marula cites as an example, set up a group to just go out and try to bring in corporate involvement and to pay for things. So while the city's deciding whether to save Akhmar, what about naming it after a company that wants to get the benefit of that exercise? Or what about getting some of these other programs taken care of by corporate dollars in exchange for some of these things? I think it's a great idea. Other cities have done it all over the U.S., in Toronto. Just because council opens a door to it doesn't mean that they have to give away everything or they have to take some precious names that mean a lot to the community, but they should be very open to seeing whether or not they can add to the tax base creatively like this.
The Tim Hortons Kenilworth access is probably universally offensive, whereas the Ronald V. Joyce Center for the Performing Arts at Hamilton Place, which no one refers to, is pretty much standard and acceptable. But I would disagree with you.
I think that people will stop. Who cares about the Kenilworth access? I mean,
really, the Tim Hortons access?
No, we'll call it the Tim to the link, right? I don't think it'll be a big deal. Okay, speaking of Lincoln Alexander, of course, You know, we miss him already, and we had a chance here at Cable 14 to do a tribute to Lincoln Alexander, and you know, it was I felt very honored to be a part of that with Doug Fairway, and what an incredible day for Hamilton, what an incredible man. If you want to see it, it's on YouTube now. You can watch the hour tribute special we did in the hour leading up to the start of his actual celebration of his life at Hamilton Place. So go to YouTube now to watch that. It was a special time for a very special man. And that also leads us into our Way to Go segment. So let me start off the Way to Goes here. With something that had to do with Link, and that is that the night before his funeral, Chris Eklund, I saw a tweet that Chris Eklund was lighting up Albion Falls in his honor, went to go and see that. What a beautiful gesture, also helping to get Link to come down the Link. Chris Eklund does great things in our community, and I know we often thank him, but for this I thought it was particularly poignant, so thanks Chris and your team.
My way to go goes to a giant good riddance. In all respect to all your wonderful memories, good riddance, Ivor Wynne Stadium. You were a dump. Now we can move on. Way to go.
We can turn you, what is it, 180 degrees, 90 degrees? My math is terrible. We can turn you halfway, 180, okay. Way to go to the City Planning Department for increased building permits, regardless of how they came about, as our discussion was earlier, whether or not it's some of our own tax dollars adding to that number. The fact of the matter is that they've handled it without having to expand their department, which means they're working very hard. Way to go.
Where's my last way to go?
Yeah, I know, you had one more way to go. Do you remember what it was?
I do. Okay, way to go for Hamilton's community spirit in terms of those who go way, way beyond the norm for Halloween decorations. Not an important holiday, but it still makes a difference in your neighborhood, so way to go.
You know, I have to say, Halloween is becoming the second biggest day to Christmas in terms of retail. It's true. And when I lived out west, and even when I lived in Montreal, nobody put like graveyards in their front yard and all this. It's very Southern Ontario how big things are with Halloween, at least it was when I moved here. Big difference. So yeah, you're right. It's pretty exciting. It's become an event.
It's fun.
It is fun. And speaking of somebody else who goes way, 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 way beyond, we mentioned earlier we had some new information from Joey Coleman, citizen journalist. If you want to get to know more about what he's doing, because we're told that he's the only one in Canada doing it at this level, it's pretty special. You can go to laircast.com and listen to the Laircast we just taped with Joey a couple weeks ago, or even a week ago. It's pretty interesting, and it'll give you a lot of information about what's happening with what he calls the hole in Hamilton media. So thank you, Loren, for being here.
My pleasure.
Speaking of media and somebody who's media savvy, I had to ask Justin Trudeau the other day if he was going to tweet the same way if he ever becomes Prime Minister, and he was nice enough to respond to me and give us this week's Tweet of the Week. So happy Halloween. We'll leave you with a message from Justin Trudeau.